Hello everybody, good morning beautiful, how are you doing today? Welcome back to my channel, and in today's Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Should You Pull video, we're going to be taking a look at Cloud of Darkness and her or their brand new FR, as well as Setzer, who gets quite a significant upgrade from his C90. Now obviously we're just coming up to Luna Freya and the next community stream and the batch of splendors that we're going to see come up in September, but if you want to know more about Cloud of Darkness and Setzer and the event that comes with them, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Now before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below. If you'd like to come and find me on Twitch, we have lots coming up this week, including on Wednesday, my partner anniversary, as I've been very lucky in that I have been streaming on Twitch for over 2 years now, and I have been partner for 2 years on Wednesday. So if you'd like to come and join me on that day, which of course is the event, the day that the Cloud of Darkness event drops, we'll also be playing other games that we've been known to play on this channel. So some Final Fantasy 14, which we'll be celebrating 6.2's release, some Final Fantasy 9, as we're still doing the trophy hunting and the count up for that, and then some Smash Bros as well, because we hadn't played that in ages, and it'd be nice to play some Sephiroth with you guys if you'd like to come and join in with that. So all sorts of things happening over on Twitch this week. You may have also noticed that I have started uploading my Final Fantasy 14 shorts over on YouTube and over on TikTok and Instagram as well. And it's something that I'm really enjoying making, and I hope will grow over the course of time. It's a nice sort of back burner project that I have going on as well. So if you're interested in those, do keep an eye out from the shorts tab for this channel as well. Of course, over on Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today that person is going to be Blood Otaku, who has been one of my longest time supporters, supporting me even before I did Dissidia at all, and I did Final Fantasy TCG, and is one of my ultimate patrons, and has given me the privilege to draw Sydney from Vagrant Story, which is one of my favourite games ever made, and is kinda, sorta, technically a Final Fantasy, but also not one. So a massive thank you goes out to you and for anybody else who does support this channel. And of course, don't forget to check out all the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia, as they all deserve your love too. Right, so let's dive straight in and see what there is on this banner that's up for grabs. So there are two banners here, but there's only one difference between them, one of which contains Charlotta's BT and the other of which contains Cloud of Darkness's BT. But in both of the banners, all of Cloud of Darkness's other weapons are available, so their FR, their LD, their EX, all of that good stuff, and then we're also going to see LD kits returning for Setzer and Serah. Now Serah only gets Force enhancements here, so there's no major reworks or anything, but if you like Serah, you could invest in her sort of enhancement boards. It's not one that I would personally go for, but I'm not one to yuck other people's yums. So let's take a look at what we have to offer here. So thank you once again to Mediu for their translations here. So we're going to take a look at Setzer first. Now Setzer is a great character. We know he's great. His dive bomb has always been useful. His freeze joker has always been amazing. His calls have always been useful. So he has fallen behind in terms of damage, but that's the only thing that really he was lacking, and he gets that and then some from this rework. So Freeze Joker now has 4 HP dumps in it, and the Freeze debuff now has a frame on it, so you're not going to have to worry about it falling off anymore if you're worried about using him alongside other debuffers. Red card gets a huge upgrade in that it gets an honestly unnecessary number of skill uses, and it goes up to 15 skill uses and has 6 HP dumps in it, with splash damage and AoE delay by a turn, which is like, sure, that seems a lot, considering that it's already a pretty good move. And then Dive Bomb gets 5 HP dumps in it. He also gets 3 more turns of his fixed dice debuff, or his fixed dice buff, sorry, for himself, but not for his party members. But that doesn't mean that it's not still a relevant buff. That rainbow damage, that maximum bravery damage, can be really useful in certain fights where you're worried about heavy defenses, and the fact that Setzer now comes with his full kit sort of like interwoven into a modern damage like era is wonderful, and you could easily start using him again. His EX also gets a buff here along with his C90, so basically you just get 5 HP dumps in it, but you don't consume bravery in between those HP dumps, so even if the enemy has large amounts of defenses, he doesn't care, and because he's either hitting them for bravery rainbow damage or hitting them without having to worry about consuming his bravery at all. So it's all just really good stuff. And, you know, luckily Setzer is a character a lot of players already have. So if you're not worried about pulling on this banner, good chances are that you've probably already got something on here that you're going to want to use at some point. So now we can take a look at Cloud of Darkness as well. So Cloud of Darkness already has a little bit of a leg up in their own way because of the fact that their BT is an off-turn damage attacker on a delay-based character. But I think in this day and age, a lot of people stopped using Cloud of Darkness for a long time because their abilities just weren't really required and were a bit awkward by having to re-break in order to get free turns and having to build the darkness stacks up to then use in the BT phase. And that stuff hasn't hugely changed for Cloud of Darkness. They have got a rework here, so you get 4 HP dumps on Insulating Appendages, which is just a basic attack, so it's definitely a lot better than it was. And then Uncanny Beam is not an ability you realistically use. Autoing Appendages is just their Braver and HP+. But Wide Angle Particle Beam gets massive increases in damage. When you have 5 stacks or more of Darkness, you get Zero Form Particle Beam, which has 6 HP dumps in it and delays the target by 3 turns. So it's a heavy, heavy move. And I always enjoy Cloud of Darkness's kit because the primary goal, as it were, of their kit is actually their skill 2 and not their EX, not their LD, nothing like that. It's just how many times can you use Zero Form Particle Beam in a short space of time, and I find that quite fun. The LD, it just gets additional HP dumps, and you also start with the buff but for a longer period of time, so that's kind of nice. And then the C90 makes it so that the EX now does 7 HP dumps in it, so that's also obviously a lot. And then the Umbral Form buff that comes off of it makes it so that you consume less bravery than HP damage you deal, which is great, particularly when you're dealing 2 hits of bravery in between those 7 HP dumps, so you're actually getting to hit a lot harder than you would have done normally. And it means that you've got a great option for during a BT phase of theirs where you're wanting to deal a lot of damage in a short space of time. You've now got like Break, Reset, Burst, now adds just more Brave Cap Up and attacks, all the sort of generic stuff that you would get. On its own, it's actually not bad. Like, it's a lot of damage in a very short space of time if you know how to use Cloud of Darkness well, like using their LD to take the darkness stacks above 5 so that you can then just spam O-Form Particle Beam as much as you want during their BT phase, or after you've gotten a break from their BT effect, which is sadly still a single HP dump. But at the end of the day, there's a lot else on offer here. And I think Cloud of Darkness gets swept under the rug quite a lot because of their placement between the likes of Lunafreya and Charlotta and even Reno. But I actually really like Cloud of Darkness because of the interesting things you can do with their kit in terms of party composition, which, let's face it, is what Shinryu era is all about right now. It's all about that team composition. So there's a lot of fun to be had with Cloud of Darkness, and that's not even taking into account their FR. So X-Death is Cloud of Darkness's partner, which is very fitting, I'm sure you'll agree. It also increases your darkness stacks by 5 going beyond the limit, so now your LD isn't the only way of doing that, which is very relevant if you like to use Cloud of Darkness's burst phase, because you'll have 2 ways of increasing your darkness stacks to get more Zero Form Particle Beams off. And then this also delays all targets by 1 turn. It's not instant turn or anything. But the force time effect I actually think is very interesting. So when a turn passes with a character using a magic attack command, or a magic attack command is triggered outside of the turn, so obviously this is to be used in conjunction with Cloud of Darkness's BT effect. But I've been thinking that maybe Emperor and Ace could be really cool partners for them here. So that's one way of doing it. When a character delays an enemy once per turn, HP damage bonus plus 20%. So this includes through breaking, because then you get another 30% if you're delaying an enemy outside of break delay triggers. So you get quite a lot out of Cloud of Darkness, especially I've been looking at Sephiroth as well, because then you're guaranteed to get AoE breaks with delays from the breaks every time Cloud of Darkness's BT effect goes off, and then you're getting it back again because Sephiroth's then putting their bravery to 1. It's probably not the most amazing. We're not talking like Camlanaut numbers here, but the reason I like Cloud of Darkness's kit is because there's so many fun little interactions that you can have with them that it's hard to ignore. I don't think that the FR is hugely necessary for some players, but as somebody who really likes Garland, who is a very delay-heavy character, Vayne being another good example as well of a character I like that's delay-heavy, there's lots of fun interactions you can make with Cloudalus, and it's not like they're hitting for pittance either. 7 HP dumped during the EX, 6 during Zero Form Particle Beam. There's a lot you can do with them. And I do think that a lot of people have written them off. But another thing to bear in mind as well is that they are an early portent for FR boards and FR Echo, which is not a mechanic that global players know an awful lot about unless they've actively researched it from the JP portion. But all I'm bringing that up for is to say that if you were to pull for Cloud of Darkness now, there is a long-term benefit for doing so, because you would at least have a character that benefits from this stuff early, and FR Echo is pretty darn powerful if you're looking that far ahead. So now why don't we take a look at the event that's coming along with Cloud of Darkness. So as always, a big shout out of course to DissidiaCompanion.com for their wonderful information presented here. But we're going to be taking on the Cray claws in a raid. So, you know, not many resources compared to say a new character event or anything. At least not initially. You have to wait until everyone's cleared the raid enough times to get all the resources out of it. But the Shinryu fight for this, it's a nice and simple one, even if it's a little bit of a pain and if you're going against the grain in any way. So basically, the force time as the gauge goes up, all you have to worry about is that their speed goes up, your turn rate goes down. So that's fairly typical for a Shinryu fight. It's not anything super huge, and when they do finally get their attack off, they go into force time for 5 turns, and then they delay all enemies for a turn and get more bravery for it. And while they're in force time, then basically they get more bravery and HP damage dealt, and your enemy party gets even slower. So it's not anything super complicated or scary. The only mechanic realistically that you have to worry about is that at 79% and 19% HP, they gain a yellow aura, which makes it so that they take no HP damage, basically, and they get 2% max HP regen after every turn. Now, obviously, you don't want this, and the way to get around it is by simply delaying the enemy. So if you delay them, whether it be through Cloud of Darkness or Setzer, because both of them are capable of it, you only have to delay it by 1 turn, so it's not super scary or anything. And then you can use lots of other ways of doing it. There are cool abilities, like, all over the place that do delay. There are even delays in some places you might not expect, like, if you're using Kayn, for example, as a lot of people do, maybe consider using Kayn's EX. It launches and it has 1 turn of AoE delay on it. So you might find that there's delay in places you weren't really looking for. But you can just push through as much as you want. You obviously want to stop the enemy from having that HP regen as soon as possible. You may also want to consider perhaps bringing some debuff mitigation, because they like to inflict max HP down, speed down, sap, attack down. So you might want to consider maybe a Lena Call or like Ignis or something like that. So the two main ways of going about it are your typical kind of just your Canon or Tidus strategies, things like that, where you can just make it so the enemies can't do a lot and you're taking instant turns, because that's not really affected by the likes of like turn rate down or anything like that. Or you can go the route of taking like off-turn damage and take advantage of the fact that the enemies get a lot of turns if you want to do it that way, using your Galoofs, your Aurons, etc. But honestly, this isn't too bad apart from the amount of HP you have to push through. So as long as you've got delay in your kit across multiple party members, because it's after every action they get that HP regen, then you should be fine to just take down 85 million HP, which is a fair amount. But as we all know at this point, there's much, much bigger damage you can deal than that. Right, after all that, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you would or would not pull on a banner and why that may or may not be the case. So this banner is particularly interesting as it's quite widely varied, but of course a big thank you to all of my patrons for casting their votes and their comments, and if you'd like to be involved in the conversation, perhaps you'd like to come and support the channel further and be part of this section of the videos as well. So let's go into some numbers. 26% of people have said gems here, 30% of people have said 100 or more tickets, 17% of people said less than 100 tickets, and 26% of people said no thank you. So pretty split across the board, realistically, which is kind of interesting. I'm willing to use tickets here. I'm in quite a fortunate position. My luck has been very good recently with FRs, so I'm happy to spend some tickets on Cloud of Darkness because I think that the way her kit interacts with other characters is really fun and interesting, and I really enjoy Cloud of Darkness as a character. I have the costume. I want to make use of this character again, and I really enjoy them. But I don't think that they're a mandatory pull for everybody, particularly people who are playing into the hype for Luna Freya, or perhaps they overspent on Charlotta. Those possibilities are also true. So let's go into some comments here. Kieran says, it's unfortunately a skip for me on this one. Reno destroyed my resources and I need to recuperate ready for Luna. For those of you that like COD, they're back to hitting like a truck. Their FR is delay based, as such they pair nicely with rebreakers and of course any other delay units. Setzer also makes a return here. His rework frames his freeze debuff and he gets a few more HP dumps. Worth using him again if you already have his kit. I honestly believe that if you don't have Setzer, this banner has a lot more value for you. Tons more, in fact, because Setzer is just a solid character across the board and has been for a very long time. Like I said earlier, calls are good, you know, defensive properties are good, offensive properties are good. They allow you to ignore some of the rules of the game, and Setzer just does that. So if you're struggling to catch up, then Setzer might be worth investing in, and if you've got loads of characters to the point where you don't really need him, then chances are you probably already have him from the last time he came around, so you have that to look forward to. Hair's Flarestar says, finally Void Mummy returns. While I'm heavily biased as a huge fan of COD and XDev, I'm definitely going gems here because I absolutely love their playstyle of controlled delays, rebreaks and solid damage. I'm excited to see how much more mileage I can get out of them between their C90, their FR, and at the very least pairing them up with my boy Branch to get some nasty damage multipliers. Is Luna Freya coming up soon? Yes, and I have tokens set aside for her when that happens, but right now COD has my focus and is getting my gems. So, I think that people are putting a little bit too much pressure on Luna Freya, and maybe I've contributed to that, and if I have, then I apologise. Because I don't think that she is the be-all and end-all of the game. Like, she is extremely powerful, like she is. There's no two ways about it. But for those of you that are kind of struggling with pulling for characters you really enjoy in favour of saving for Luna Freya, that's a question you might need to ask yourself on whether that's worth it for you. Because while Luna Freya does have a lot going for her, she still suffers from elemental lockouts later on. She's not a perfect unit by any means. She's just really, really good. So if that's going to sort of restrict you on what you're pulling for in the future, maybe address that and see what you think is worth your resources and ultimately what would make you happier playing the game. And then finally, Multiracial Lion says, I'm skipping here, I'm not interested in Cloud of Darkness as FR, and I don't have a BT to build off of. I also need to recover my resources to the fiasco of Reno's pools and Gabranth too. Cloud of Darkness is a good character, I'm just not that interested or invested in them. Setzer, however, I always look forward to Setzer, and with the future of the game, that chromatic damage is really handy for the same reason that Charlotta BT is. Much like I said that perhaps I feel that Luna Freya was getting a bit too much pressure, I don't think that Charlotta's been getting enough. And I think that they are being compared directly, and I see a lot of posts like that, and I think that realistically, the reason for that is because Charlotta and Luna Freya are both high-octane characters that are released closely together. I don't think that their kits are directly comparable. I don't think that they perform the same function. I think there are certain things that one can do that the other can also do, but that can be said of many characters within this game. So, while I think that the choices can be made, that's only true if you are in a position where you can only afford to pull for one. And I think that that is where a lot of the question comes from when it comes to, am I saving for Luna Freya? Do I pull for Charlotta? Do I pull for this? Do I pull for that? It all comes down to each individual person's sort of playstyle and what is available to them at any given time. I will agree with Lion here about Setzer. I think that Setzer's kit is so universally useful that it just, and with an LD only as well, it's just a nice kit to have. So honestly, if you don't have Setzer, I'd at least consider looking at throwing some tickets here to try and get him, and if you get Cloud of Darkness along the way, fantastic. But this banner will also be live when Luna Freya does come out, in theory, unless they change the scheduling around at all next week. But in all honesty, honestly, the choice is down to you. So now we just have to ask the big question, of course. Should you be pulling for Cloud of Darkness or Setzer at this point? Now, I personally feel that Cloud of Darkness is a fierce damage dealer with strong delay capabilities, And honestly, more exciting than that is the fact that there's so many interactions that work well with them that make them more interesting than people give them credit for. I think that a lot of people look at delay-based kits and think, well, I have instant turn kits, what do I really need this for? And there are, like, difficulties with Cloud of Darkness's kits. Like, there's only one HP dump during their BT effect, and of course it's attached to a BT effect, so Cloud of Darkness can be very expensive to invest in. And honestly, what it comes down to is whether you've got high power stones and ultimate books and the like that are available. I think that one of the big problems that a lot of people are having with Dissidia currently, it's not the fact that they are unable to pull for a particular item, it's the fact that they don't have the in-game resources to do anything with that item once they've actually got it. I've probably been a bit too frivolous with my FRs and maxing them out, and probably could have skipped a couple of them. And my FRs, my high power stones rather, are starting to really suffer for it. So if I wanted to do Cloud of Darkness, then I have to wonder about what other ones I can do in the future. And I think a lot of players are in that position. But I don't think Cloud of Darkness is a bad investment. I mean, picking up their FR even for later use down the line, you know, they are an early sort of purportant for, you know, FR boards and FR Echo, which is really nice. And they are a very strong damage dealer. 6 to 7 HP dumps plus that extra one from the BT effect is nice. The big delay is really fun. Like I said, the FR has some really fun interactions with characters like Ace, Emperor, Garland, all sorts of delay-based characters that you can probably use. And Setzer's a great character too. He just happens to be one that most players who at least have been playing for a while already have. There's not an awful lot to dislike about Setzer, to be honest. He's really good defensively, he's got Freeze Joker, he's really good offensively. Red card has 15 uses and 6 HP dumps and delays AoE. It's just good stuff. Like, it's nice. And Dive Bomb and Fixed Dice are some of the best buffs in the game because you just ignore any kind of damage properties, and he makes some really interesting sort of like party compositions. But did you spend on other stuff? Did you pull for Charlotta? Did you pull for Reno? Are you pulling for Lunafreya? Are you pulling for other stuff that comes with Lunafreya? There are a lot of characters in this game, and largely the gated portion of the game right now isn't actually the resources you need to pull with. It's what you get after you've pulled the item. And if you can't max out an FR, is there any reason to pull for it in the first place? I think that that's the problem that we're finding right now, is that a lot of players just don't really know where they want to put their resources, and honestly, there has to be somewhere where you can skip a banner, and this is probably the safest one. Like when you've got your Charlottas and your Lunafreyas either side, something's got to give. So that is all for today's video on Dissidia Opera Omnia. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Cloud of Darkness. I kind of want to invest in Cloud of Darkness. Do you want to invest in Cloud of Darkness? I don't really know at this point. Like I said, high power stones are a thing, and how many are you still sitting on out of interest? Let me know in the comments below. Obviously, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notification on the other videos I'm making, and do keep an eye out for other stuff that I might be making that's not Dissidia related, because I'm really looking forward to making more stuff. I have been doing it for a long time, and I've been really pushing myself in that direction, so do let me know what kinds of other stuff that you'd want to see from me. And that's going to be all from me today, so thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later, beautiful. Take care.